Greetings, listener, and welcome to another episode of the Coco and Daltz podcast. I'm still not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.
I like to do it like really dramatically at the beginning there. Did you notice that at all?
I've noticed you've done that a time or two.
Yeah, I like to really set it up.
I think listener has too, and that's why we have one listener.
Oh, you're blaming that on...
No, not at all, actually.
You're blaming the intro on one listener.
One of many factors as to why we only have one listener.
Well, they say in the podcast business, and I know you and I are veteran savvy people of this business, but they say when you talk to people, you want them to feel like you're just talking to them. So that's why we're talking to listener, because there's only one of you out there listening right now to what we're saying.
That's right. We have a personal relationship with a nameless, faceless,
drunken Swedish listener.
Yeah.
And some in Canada too, apparently.
Awesome.
So this week we are talking about the reboot for Unsolved Mysteries. Coco, take it away.
That's right, Daltz.
Oh, see, I like it when you do that.
When I play along.
Yes, exactly.
I so rarely play along.
So it's sort of like a microcosm of our relationship,
right.
Actually.
On the podcast and in life,
yes.
I so rarely play along.
When you play along, I enjoy it.
So, in the past couple weeks, Netflix has rebooted the series Unsolved Mystery. It originally ran from 87 to 97 on NBC. Then it was picked up by like 3 different networks over the next 13 years a few times and rebooted. It's currently been off the air since 2010. Netflix just dropped 6 new episodes, all in the 45 to 50 minute range. There are 5 murders and 1 UFO sighting. So
random unsolved mystery. Also, where are my keys? That's episode 7.
Right. Yeah. Why did I walk into this room again?
Right, exactly. What day is it? Actually, that's a pandemic unsolved mystery.
Yeah,
what day is it, and what should I be doing today?
Yeah, that's true. So it's 6 episodes, 5 murders, 1 UFO. It's still got the creepy music from the original, but it no longer has a host, partly because Robert Stack is no longer with us, and partly because they consciously made the choice not to include a host just because times are a little different now, and audiences maybe don't necessarily need the sort of hand-holding that they needed back then. Maybe tastes are different. They don't want somebody popping in every 30 seconds to say, Ray was perplexed as to what Maria was talking about.
Well, they don't have any commercials either in the Netflix version, right? So, like, you want to bring it back to Bob Stack, because as soon as you see Bob Stack on the screen, you're paying attention or you're in trouble.
So, Unsolved Mysteries debuted when I was 10 years old, and it scared the hell out of me. Like, Robert Stack is a spooky ass mofo.
He is a serious dude.
In that trench coat, like, I had some not, and everybody watched it. It was a huge runaway hit back in the 80s when it first debuted. So.
Well, and just on that point, in the 88-89 season, which was one of the early seasons, it was number 17. It was ranked number 17 nationally.
Well, it would seem like it would be a little bit better because that was still the point at which we only had 3 or 4 networks and not 8,000 cable channels. So you were kind of locked into what's on tonight, and there's no DVRs at that point either.
Right.
So
the next season it was number 11.
Yeah. So okay. So it was
that
one
was
of
the
those.
highest it got. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so yeah, that's. I mean, it's even if you didn't see the original, the title is very self-explanatory. These are murders that have not been solved. They're loved ones
or UFO sightings
that haven't been accounted for by the military. The family members and the loved ones and the friends are coming forward asking for help to try to find out what happened, to their loved ones who suffered these, horrible things. So what did you think?
So just cycling back to the Bob Stack or Robert Stack as he's known professionally.
Don't call me Shirley.
But
that was Leslie Nielsen though, right?
That was Leslie Nielsen, but that's where I'm going is after we watched Unsolved Mysteries, I watched Airplane again.
Oh, you did? Oh, man.
because that's my Robert Stack. Like, I didn't watch Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid. And the only time I ever knew Robert Stack was from Airplane, when he's trying to land the plane with Robert Hayes trying to land the plane. And so I watched Airplane again with Robert Stack, Leslie Nielsen, Peter Graves, and Lloyd Bridges. All these,
Wow.
and all serious actors, and they were just hamming it up beautifully. So that was a little bit of a palate cleanser for me.
Right,
So the Unsolved Mysteries. So Unsolved Mysteries, I like the concept. One observation I had, having not been a fan of the show originally and not watched it really, I knew of it, of course, and I knew what it represented and what it was trying to do. But I'm very much somebody who likes closure, likes things to be wrapped up at the end of a, even though we watched the Madeleine McCann documentary, that felt like there was some closure there in terms of, it was too long, but the case seemed to have come to an end in that, and now obviously it hasn't, but in that particular presentation, and all the other things that we watch, maybe that's the way that I've been conditioned by culture and movies and TV shows, and everything wraps up.
You want an ending.
You want an ending, and you want some sort of resolution. You want some sort of final scene where everybody's happy or whatever. But so these shows obviously are not that at all. It's almost like it's just the beginning of the story. It's not even the middle of the story. And I found it fascinating what they did. I think it's also a reflection of our times that what Unsolved Mysteries, how influential it was on subsequent documentaries that were made, because a lot of the documentaries that we saw as part of this new season on Netflix was they felt like just a regular documentary that we've seen lots of in other episodes. So it felt like a miniature version of the Madeleine McCann documentary, because there's a lot of drone shots and there's a lot of people walking down the street looking sad and all that sort of stuff, and it's just sort of the way that it shows that documentaries have become more mainstream now than they were in the original days of Unsolved Mysteries. I thought it was good for what it was. I don't think I would. I'm not necessarily going to recommend it, because I think there are other things out there that are better that you could spend your time on. But for what it was, I thought it was fairly well done. And I don't want to recommend it also because there's no Bob Stack.
Right. Totally.
They should have hologrammed Bob Stack in there and just looked into the camera and if you know anything.
If they can hologram Tupac at Coachella, then they can hologram Robert Stack.
Exactly. Get him in there and make his lips move and say unsolved.com. Because
Right, totally. How much did they have to pay for that URL,
Right.
that domain name?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody owned unsolved.com before this.
Yeah. So what did you think, Coco?
So I liked it. I am a fan of the true crime genre, as many people are. Well, let me take that back. I didn't like it, as in I didn't enjoy it in the same way I would a movie or a TV show, because it's sad. These people, they, like you said, they've had no closure. They've had no resolution. Their husbands, their children, their wives, their mothers.
They're still gone or unsolved. Yeah.
They're still gone. They don't know what happened to them. In one poor kid's case, he doesn't even have his mom's ashes, because the day after his mom disappeared, his stepdad changed the locks on the house and kicked him out. He wasn't even allowed to go in and get his clothing. And then 2 years later, her body is found, and the stepdad is just hoarding the ashes. So that poor kid, you feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say I enjoyed it, because
enjoying other people's misery.
Right, exactly. You feel so bad for these people. They just want answers, and that's why they're on this platform appealing to anybody, especially because in many cases the police really kind of didn't do their jobs too well.
Yes.
If at all.
Yes.
So and I understand that sometimes you just don't get answers. Sometimes
there are a lot of cold cases out there.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes somebody commits the perfect crime and you're never going to get closure, and I understand that, but so I didn't enjoy it as I would sitting down and watching a Seinfeld rerun. But at the same time, I am a fan of the true crime genre. I did, quote unquote, enjoy it from that perspective. I thought the actual production values were well done. The cases were all compelling. The lack of host didn't bother me at all.
Right.
It still had the creepy music, so it was still I was a 10-year-old, watching something on NBC.
Is that why you were gripping my arm all throughout the entire?
Well, that, and also because you're dreamy and I wanted to get close to you because it's our first date.
That was totally a softball. I set you up on that one, and you hit it out of the park. good reaction time there.
Yeah, and the episodes were all like 45 to 50 minutes. So I feel like I say this a lot, but it's something that you can knock out very quickly.
Right.
You know, it's not the Madeline McCann thing, which is an 8-parter that you're going to have to sit down and just plow through, and maybe there wasn't a lot of filler.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't seem like they went over the same stuff a lot. It seemed like it went only stuff that was pertinent was shown.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of, and she was dating this guy, or, you know, whatever, any kind of salacious type thing. So.
And also these are not sequential, so you can watch them out of order if you want to, or you can watch 2 of them if you want to. Like, it's very much, so if the UFO thing doesn't appeal to you, which I thought was very fascinating.
Yeah,
actually.
the UFO thing was amazing.
I know I was mocking it off the top, but it was, and it took place not far from here, actually, in Berkshire, Massachusetts. So Berkshire Mountains up there. So I think that you could definitely dip into this, and it could be one of those things where, like, oh, you know, my wife is going to get ready for bed, so I've got 45 minutes to waste. Are you speaking from experience there, Dalt? I don't know. Yeah. I think I'll bang one out, and I did like a lot of the. In the same vein that I liked Criminal, which I've raved on and on about, and not many downloads on that, listener, so keep working on that if you could. But that UK series...
Go back in the archive and find our review of the Netflix series Criminal and listen to that.
So the fascinating part about that to me, which is also the case in this with Unsolved Mysteries, is the crime solving that goes on. So you have clue A leads to clue B and leads to suspect A, and all the, you know, this could. That's the stuff I find fascinating. It's essentially the forensics, for want of a better term, of solving a crime. When they do all that, and in some of these instances they actually solve the crime to a certain extent, but they don't have somebody to arrest because they don't have a body, or they don't have, it's all circumstantial evidence in the same sort of vein. So,
or there's sorry to interrupt. There's one episode where it takes place in France, and a father, spoiler alert, kills his entire family and their dogs, and then he takes off. And by the time the cops figure out the family is dead, he's got a 3-week head start on them, and he just like walked off into the mountains in the south of France, and they don't know. Did he kill himself in the mountains, or did he hop a train or a bus or, so like they know what happened, like they know what happened, but they just don't have a person to bring in to pin it on.
They don't have the suspect. And I think that's a telling thing to me, is in terms of the loose ends, is that I want to know what happened to that guy. Like, is he dead in the mountains and they found his body, or did he change his identity? I mean, I know that's the point of the series, but I'm wondering, in this day and age where a lot of people, I think, are used to tying up loose, like that's why people binge watch things, is to get to the end and find out what happens, right? Find the denouement.
Look at you, Canadian, dropping the French, yeah.
Or the resolution, or, they want to know exactly what happens and how everything pans out. So I'd be interested to see what the reception to this is. There's only 6 episodes, which is kind of a light lift for something for Netflix to commit to. So maybe they're testing this out as well to see if it's received well. But
I read that they're coming back with another 6 or 10 episodes this fall.
Okay, so you read the research notes and I didn't, apparently.
Well, I don't know if they were all supposed to drop at the same time, but then Netflix said, oh, we're running out of content because we're not able to film anything, so maybe we're going to hold off on the other episodes that are in the can until later, so we're not running out of stuff and people are stopping paying their $13.81 a month.
Right, because we don't want that, because we're only making zillions of dollars.
Right, totally.
The interesting case to me was the first one, where it involves the happily married, freshly married husband who, for some unforeseen, unknown, unsolved reason, is found dead in a convention center room that looks like he fell from a hotel in Baltimore. And I thought that was really interesting, the way that they did all the possibilities in terms of he could have done this. No, the first theory was he jumped. And they said, well, no, if he jumped, he had to have been the world's best long jumper in order to get from the edge of the roof all the way to over where the hole was in the garage, 20 stories down or whatever it happened to be. So that was just an example of, like, there's a lot of drone footage in that flying over the hotel. But that was an example of sort of what I was talking about, the forensics, is they really narrowed it down, and they said, well, he couldn't have died this way, and he couldn't have died this way, and he couldn't have died this way. And then we get to the end of it, and they don't really determine how he died. Like, how did he get how did he die a broken human being at the bottom of this, on the floor of this convention center through a roof? And there was speculation, I think you said online, Coco, that he was doing something along the lines of the game, and he was jumping from a helicopter because people couldn't hear. They never heard him jump, and they never heard him fall or anything like that, or scream. You think somebody would yell if they were falling from a 20-story building.
Right. And I think that's another way that this show is different from the original, because people expect forensics like that because we've just had 20 years of watching NCIS and CSI and Forensic Files and all these shows that go into the science. And we didn't have that in the 80s. Like in the 80s, we barely knew what DNA was.
We had Magnum PI as our police, or as our detective example, I guess.
Right, totally. So,
which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. So that's one way for sure it's been updated, is like, especially in that episode, like they went into like, well, did he do this? But he couldn't have because this doesn't make any sense. Did he do that? Oh, but he couldn't have because then he would have had to do this. And it was, there was a lot of technical, cop talk with angles and stuff
Flow
like that. But
charts
it wasn't difficult to understand or anything by any means. It was just like, wow, I don't remember any of the original series basically because it was 30 years ago and it's not something I'm going to go back and rewatch, but I definitely don't remember them saying like, oh, well, the isosceles triangle is this and, blah, blah, blah. So, well,
and that you raise a good point too, is because crime solving has gotten so much better than it was in the mid 80s. So you've got a lot more DNA, you've got the forensics are a lot better. You've got, I think from what I understand, the original forming of the show in the 80s was a lot of law enforcement agencies were like, hey, we've got this case. Can you help us solve it? And they were going to a lot of TV people and newspapers and stuff like that. And it sort of grew from there because they didn't have the internet, obviously. They didn't have Ancestor.com or whatever it happens to be. Like they didn't have any of those kinds of things where you could track things by DNA and by, a swab of a cheek and stuff like that. So you had like...
Yeah, would there have even been like any kind of FBI database or anything back then? Like seriously,
And so what they're going on like, oh, I saw this guy and he might have been there, as opposed to now where you've got a hair fiber, a hair sample on a doorknob or something like that. Like it's just completely different. So what I'm saying is that there were probably some crimes that were solved in those days from that TV show. And that are probably not going to be it's not as easily to solve them that way today because they're already way ahead of the curve. Whereas back in those days, you're like, oh, let's put it on TV and see what happens. Whereas now they've done everything they can, and it's sort of like, well, okay, if you want to do a story on this, let's do a story on this. So I'd be interested to see if any of these crimes actually are solved. I know there's been a lot of clues coming in, a lot of feedback from listeners and our viewers, I should say, but are they just crackpots or are they people just like, I got a theory that maybe Gilligan did it, him and the skipper.
Well, apparently a week or so after Netflix dropped all the episodes, they also dropped on Reddit a Google Drive full of like more evidence and stuff from each of the 6 cases. And they're just letting Reddit go at it and try to solve it based on like that. And I'm like, well, I mean, if anybody can do it, Reddit can do it. I mean, Reddit can take a tiny little pixel from a picture and figure out, when it was taken and where it was taken and who's in it and the angle of the sun at the time of the, right? Like, so
we now have crowd solving. We have crowdsourcing. Now we have crowd solving.
Well, I mean, if the cops are going to let a kid be disappeared for like 3 weeks and then like half-ass like search a creek and be like, we didn't find him. And then like 2 days later, his family goes out and they're like, yeah, there's his body right there where you said you searched. So that's another infuriating thing about this is like there's just in some cases no justice.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part, and that's where you go to these kinds of things is like you're not getting action because of maybe the person's skin color or whatever it happens to be, a disadvantaged class in some way, shape, or form, and you're not getting the response that you think you need, and everybody should get the same response, then yeah, by all means, go to these. It'd be interesting to see. I'm interested to see what the follow-ups are. Like, so when the next batch comes out, if they do any sort of extras with, here are the ones we solved from last time around.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have, for me, because I'm that way, I need resolution.
Right.
Like, did we solve some of these? I mean, it would be very easy to check them online, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
But
I can't imagine Netflix wouldn't tout
Right.
You know, 15-year-old, murder solved thanks to Unsolved Mysteries. And
So that one, they should do the hologram of Bob Stack.
yes.
They'd be like, thank you for contributing to the solving of these crimes. Like, it doesn't even have to be, it could just be something lifted from the old series and just hologram Bob in there and then introduce it.
They've already got like a spooky ass, like blurry mugshot of him behind,
In the background,
the
yeah.
background,
Yeah.
behind where the title card comes up. So it's not too far from that to have a hologram.
Or they could just lift a scene from Airplane and have
that's
him
true.
introduce it that way. And it's like, get me over under, or no, Rex Kramer, whoever he was, the old detective, the old pilot, whoever he was. So, where are you standing on the recommendation scale with this one, Coco?
I would recommend it. It's like I said, you can whip through it pretty fast. The cases are all compelling, especially the UFO one. Like that's really crazy. So, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily say that I quote unquote enjoyed it, but I would recommend it.
So 2 alien babies up, or
2 alien babies up. Yeah. Yes. What about you, dolls?
I would say maybe 1 alien baby up. I don't know. I thought that it was fine, but if we could somehow, if there was a code you could enter and then you would get the solution,
Yeah.
or you had to submit your guess as to who you thought did it.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you win, or weeks later they unveil, I'm still sort of bugged about that. It's like that to-do list you have, and then things are not crossed off.
Are you saying that because you just looked at your to-do list like 2 hours ago?
Well, I always look at no matter what time of the day, I've always just looked at my to-do list. But it's one of those things, it's like Unsolved Mysteries, not crossed off. So that makes me hesitate. I'd rather watch I'd rather watch Criminal again.
Oh, wow.
But these were well done. If you're into that kind of thing, and if you remember Unsolved Mysteries, or you want to find out what the whole fuss was about from the 80s, and you're younger than us, which is a distinct possibility, then this is a good way to get back into that kind of thing.
So how do you feel about like the really big mysteries then, like who shot JFK? And
yeah, see, now that just bugs me. It's because there's so many theories out there, and I think we would just, as a society, we should just settle on one. We should just all have agree and say the Soviets got Lee Harvey to do it, and then we're out.
Oh, wow. So you don't think the CIA took him out because of the Bay of Pigs or whatever?
Well, there's also the mob too.
Well, yeah, there's the mob,
because of Marilyn Monroe and everything like that. Like,
did the mob take him out because of Marilyn Monroe?
I don't know.
I thought it had something to do with Illinois and like vote rigging.
Well, see, now I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Yeah,
we should maybe we should have our own Unsolved Mysteries podcast.
I think we should.
Like Coco and Dalt's conspiracy theory.
Well, there is no, in terms of one solved mystery I know, it's our love.
Is that
it's solved?
Is that a solved mystery though, or does it move in mysterious ways?
Oh, look at you!
Yeah.
And dropping you too at the same time.
Well, and the Bible. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, Bono and God.
Right.
I mean, same thing.
Yeah, kind of the same.
So before we go too much further off the rails here,
right,
I'll let you know where else you can find us on the interwebs if you want to hear us talk about anything else that we talk about.
About the moon landing. Ask Coco about the moon landing. I dare you.
Didn't happen. So there you go. That's my
There's
my
more
hot
to
take.
that though.
That's my hot take. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and YouTube. We are still in the process of trying to get the podcast on IMDb. So when that finally happens, we will announce it on our social platforms, which are Coco and Daltz on Facebook and Twitter, also cocoanddaltz.com on the interwebs, and you can email us at cocoanddaltz@gmail.com if you want to give us any feedback, let us know what you want us to review in the future, all that fun stuff.
And when you go to cocoanddaltz.com to read reviews of music, books, and movies...
And I still got to change our template on that. I'm sorry about that.
Click on support the podcast and then give us your bank account number.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking maybe as a fundraiser, we could do like a Coco and Daltz mask.
Oh.
Like a Coco and Daltz.
Like a logo mask, or like your smiling face on the bottom part of it, and then people could wear that.
No, that's creepy. No, just have like Coco and Daltz, real people, real reviews.
Or my beard. You could have like my beard on a mask and then...
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should totally do that. Let us know what you think about that, listener, if you want to have a Coco and Daltz face mask.
the best suggestion gets a free mask. We'll send it to you.
All right, I'm cool with that.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
So thanks again for listening to us, listener. We appreciate your dedication and loyalty, and we know you have a choice. So thanks for choosing us.
Are there a million podcasts out there, did you say, that you saw the other day?
Yeah, but none of them are like ours.
That's true. I mean, because we move in mysterious ways.
We do. And we move in the ways of, I would prefer that we move in the ways of you two and not God.
Well, yeah.
Just for what it's worth.
I don't want to smite people.
No smiting.
Yeah.
Smoted? Have you been smoted? What's the past? Anyway.
I don't know.
So for another week, thank you again for joining us, listener. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Dolph.